All right, good morning everyone and welcome back to another Netgear Insider webinar. I am your host Sarah Moreno and today we're going to be talking about Insight Solution. And here to talk about that today is Shaheen, our project line manager for the Insight app. If you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to use the chat and we'll get to those towards the end of the webinar. And we'll try to answer them, a few here and there during the slides. And we also have Doug here to answer any questions about readiness and Insight. So, all right, let's get started. Take it away, Shaheen.
Thanks, Sarah, and good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are, everyone. My name is Shaheen Kazi. I am the product line manager for Insight Solution. And what I'm going to do today is give you a quick update on where we are with Insight and again, do a refresher on what Insight is about and the advantages of Insight. And then basically, also, I'm open to answering questions, and additionally, I'll also point out a few things that are in the works for the evolution of Insight. So with that said, let's get started. And I want to actually start with a discussion of, why did we even build Insight? Obviously, Netgear is a successful hardware company, and what are the triggers for us to go to build a software solution, which is what Insight is. So if you think back to, a decade ago, most small businesses, and that is the focus of Netgear's SMB division, is we really focus on the small side of SMB. So SMB typically is a pretty broad range, anything from one person up to 1,000 people is typically the definition of SMB. We typically focus on the lower end, so the sub 200 employees range of that. And if you look at small business, small business is everything from whether it's a hairdressing salon or a restaurant, a dental practice, a physical therapy practice, a church, a school, small hotels, cafes, restaurants, the list goes on. So if you think back to, a decade ago or say 12 years ago, the networking requirements of this segment was pretty minimal. In most cases, they had a residential grade, particularly the lower end of that spectrum, a residential grade DSL line coming in, and that was pretty much it. But something has happened over the last decade, and that is mobility. So with mobility, we have triggers where mobility drove employees to BYOD, and then they want basically their employer to provide them with secure access even for their BYOD devices. And additionally, they want to be untethered, so you need Wi-Fi for your employees. But also, these small businesses own customers, their end customers. So the people who are in the waiting rooms of the dental practices, physical therapy practice, the hairdressing salon, the auto garage, et cetera, those people, those end customers are also demanding Wi-Fi as a free service while they are waiting. And so all of that has thrust small business into a situation where they have to address networking in a way like they've never had to before. And yet, at the same time, the fact is that and this is just an introductory page on me and Doug, and the fact is that most small businesses really do not find Netgear networking to be easy and accessible to them. Essentially, networking gear was never really intended to be used by the novice or just the man on the street, and it was intended to be used by IT professionals typically. And now we expect small businesses who have businesses of their own that they are already putting very long hours into to be adding to their load in understanding and actually operating networking devices. And the fact is that most of them don't have any IT resources. This is an external study that was done by Salesforce. Up to 83% of them do not have any IT staff, and yet the bulk of them have to make IT decisions. So that is a conundrum, and they have two choices. They can either find a service provider to set up and maintain their networking, or they can tackle the network device setup and maintenance on their own. So Netgear Insight is really built for both of those scenarios. Now let's take a look at what's going on with the resellers and the channel, the value-added resellers, service providers, etc. Over the last decade, with mobility, we actually have a situation where there's a tremendous opportunity to add services to the small businesses, services that they may not have necessarily wanted prior to a decade or 12 years ago, but now do. But also you have a challenging situation with online e-commerce that creates a challenge for resellers and service providers. And basically for resellers, the path to success is now to take on and to move from being a pure reseller to becoming a service provider, and to providing services like networking as a service, Wi-Fi as a service, etc. The many incarnations of services that they can provide to their customers, the small businesses. So for the channel partners, services moving from a reseller to a services model requires a number of things. It requires a platform to build off on. And this platform needs to get them to market quickly. It also needs to have a TCO that allows them to build a profitable business on. They need a platform that can provide them the core visibility and control, even remotely. They need this platform to be scalable so that it grows as they grow. And then, of course, they need all on the hardware side, they need all of the right terms, quality products, the right warranties, etc. And that is exactly what Insight is about. Netgear Insight is really an ecosystem. And when we use the word ecosystem, what we mean is that it is, one, the Insight management platform. It is a cloud-based platform. We did take a mobile-first approach. So in the initial release, it is on mobile, on iOS and Android, backed by a cloud, totally scalable, and basically what it does is it manages a set of devices. In the first release, it manages Insight switches. There are 4 versions, 4 models of Insight switches: the GC110, GC110P, GC510P, and GC510PP. Additionally, it also in its first release manages 2 access points, the WAC 505 and the WAC 510. And then it manages a whole range of ReadyNAS devices, essentially, practically the entire Netgear ReadyNAS line, with the exception, this is a key point I want to stress, with the exception of ReadyNAS 100 series. So what exactly do we get out of the Insight management platform? As I mentioned, it is cloud-based. So it does a number of things. Initially, it does network discovery. You can use a mobile app to basically scan the subnet, and then it delivers a list of devices that it discovers, making them easily accessible for you to set up and configure and also register with mynetgear.com, which is Netgear support. In addition to that, it also provides visibility into the Wi-Fi setup, into each of the devices that you have, your switch and your Wi-Fi. What is the traffic going through it? Who are the clients tied to the Wi-Fi, the SSIDs that you've created? Management, it really simplifies the whole process of configuration and setup of devices. On the access points, you are able to, right through the mobile app, you're able to set up multiple SSIDs. You're able to basically secure those SSIDs. You're able to do also some URL filtering. You can also do MAC ACLs. And basically, you can associate SSIDs with VLANs directly in the app itself, and then go into the wired setting, the setting of your switch to basically build out the configs of your VLANs. You can also prioritize based on traffic types. So for instance, if you have video and VoIP traffic, you can prioritize that right through the app. You can also do in-depth configuration of ports, including configuration of ports across multiple devices, multiple switches, all in a single go. We also have a wizard to allow you to configure multiple ports across multiple devices and just basically push out the configs across all those selected ports. You can also lag ports, including lagging ports across multiple switches. On the Wi-Fi access, one other thing I want to point out is that you also have the capability of very quickly creating a free guest Wi-Fi with a captive portal right through the app. It'll allow you to even do things like create your own welcome message, creating a EULA if you have specific terms, setting the number of hours, anything from 30 minutes onto 24 hours that you will provide free Wi-Fi access to your guests. And then remote monitoring, of course, because it is cloud-based, all of this is available and accessible from anywhere at any time. So you have full visibility and control into your network, including multiple networks at any time. In addition to the remote monitoring capability, we also provide proactive notifications in the event that something is not right, if a device is offline, if there's new firmware available, all of those things we proactively let you know. And then, of course, you have the ability to fine-tune on an ongoing basis, manage your firmware, etc. So moving on, I want to kind of stress the multiple locations all through the app currently. So you are able to manage multiple locations. If, for instance, you're a service provider and you have multiple customers, or you are a business with multiple sites, you can very easily create multiple network locations, give them a name, and then you have a view into each one of them. You can drill down into the specifics of that network location. You can also get a summary view of the status of your devices across all of those locations. So key value that we bring is obviously for our channel partners, we enable them to move from a reseller to a service provider model very easily, providing them with that key platform that they need to be able to build a successful service provider business. Ease and speed to market, very high profitability really, because with a lower TCO, you can essentially increase the margins that you can in order to build a successful business on. Remote access, single pane of glass, and then of course all backed by Netgear quality, our world-renowned support terms and our warranty terms. For the end user, the advantages continue from quick installation across the full range of access points, switches, and readiness devices, secure remote access, and scale to grow as their businesses grow. So basically, I've talked a little bit about this, but core insight advantages are really the cloud benefits. And this is in addition to the local device GUI. So a very important aspect is that Insight is a cloud-based solution, but we also continue to provide the local device GUI. So you will, all the devices that we're talking about, the Insight APs and the Insight switches are all smart switches with a GUI of their own. And then in addition to that, they also have the cloud platform for unified centralized management, remote access, etc. TCO, I've talked a little bit about it, no initial software installation. So Insight is a true cloud-based solution. The software resides in the cloud. Your network is your own. You do not have to SSH in, open any ports, none of that. You basically have your network is totally locked down. All you're doing is downloading the app from the Apple or Google Play, and then essentially you are ready to set up your networks, multiple networks. So just to kind of get into some of the key features, I'm not going to go through the entire list, but to highlight a few things. So it is a mobile app. We took a mobile first approach, available on iOS and Android, cloud-based, obviously the remote access. We've also taken care of making sure that you have single sign-on security as well as ease of SSO. You have in-app access to Netgear support. You also have in-app access to a number of articles that we've written. So basically, as you go into each specific device configuration, you can access a bunch of articles that are specific to that device type. You also can register all your devices, not only the Insight managed devices, but other Netgear SMB devices very easily. It makes the process of registering your devices super easy and kind of fun, because you can either scan and see the devices, or if there are some older models of devices that don't come through in the network scan, you can barcode and QR scan them. And then basically the idea of a holistic single view of all your assets, it makes the idea of your managing all your networking assets really easy. And also the advantage of having the notifications and proactive alerts. So for access points, specifically Insight in its first release supports multiple SSID creation, up to 8 of them. Band selection, Wi-Fi security, captive portal creation, also rate limiting, and as I mentioned, setting up a VLAN and associating it with a specific SSID. And then detailed device diagnostics. We also have in the security, we have a number of capabilities. You have the ability to block specific URLs. You also have the ability to use MAC ACLs for more granular security. For switches, we allow right through the Insight mobile app, you can create and manage your VLANs. You can optimize traffic for video with IGMP snooping. You can also optimize traffic for VoIP. You can lag ports. You can obviously do MAC authentication, IP filtering, PoE setup. So you have the ability to actually create your PoE schedules, and then with some advanced controls. And in fact, in the next release, you're going to see even more advanced PoE management capabilities. As I mentioned, there's a group port configuration wizard that allows you to configure ports across multiple switches and to basically enforce those configs with a single tap, and the ability to reboot, do diagnostics, etc. Sorry about that. And for ReadyNAS, we have the ability to check the status of ReadyNAS. You also have Bluetooth pairing, ReadyNAS security status, firmware status and updates, ongoing monitoring, and the ability to do simple troubleshooting and manage your NAS settings. So a little bit quickly on the Insight roadmap, we introduced Insight. The first release was Insight 3.0. That took place on September 19th. The device is available, the app is available on iOS and Android already. And initially we are doing a free trial that will continue through January 9th. During the trial period, there is no enforcement of any limitation at all. You can have any number of devices on Insight and you are good to go. Now, on January 9th, we will be introducing Insight Premium in addition to Insight Basic, and this is how things will go, is that you will always continue to have 2 free devices with Insight Basic. Any additional devices for Insight Basic beyond the first 2 free, there will be a minimal charge of $4.99 per device per year. You also have the option to upgrade to Insight Premium. Insight Premium gives you more features. It also gives you the web portal in addition to the mobile app. And to upgrade to Insight Premium, there's a charge of $9.99 per device per year. And this will all happen in Q1, as I said, around the January 9th timeframe. In Q2, we'll also be introducing another product that will be specific for the channel, and I will speak to it at a later time. And as I said, it will be specific to the channel. So with that said, I want to kind of start wrapping things up. And before I do, I want to stop and check in with Doug if there is anything that he specifically wants to bring up on Insight managing the ReadyNAS devices.
Nope, I don't have anything to add. That was a very comprehensive presentation, especially on the ReadyNAS side. And just one thing that highlight or accentuate what Shaheen just said is that all ReadyNAS, with the exception of 2 models, are covered by Insight. So that's a great tool to manage all your storage devices under multiple accounts.
Thanks, Doug. So let me actually continue and talk a little bit about what Insight delivers. So, one thing that I pointed out is that Insight is true cloud, and let me explain a little bit what that means. What we mean by that is that all of the Insight management software resides in a cloud. It's a very secure cloud, highly scalable, with full HA, etc. There is no software to set up. There is no software that you have to download onto any kind of additional hardware device. You do not need to set up and spend hours actually setting up the management software at all. It is ready to go. All you do is download the app, and then in the next release in January with Premium, in addition to the app, you will also get a web portal. We also use the word hybrid, and what we mean by this is that the device's local GUI never goes away. It is not, in the highly unlikely chance that for whatever reason that you have no power and no access to the cloud. Well, if you have no power, obviously nothing works. But if you have no access to the cloud, your device's local GUI is still available to you. That does not go away. So the devices, the Insight devices, are standalone smart devices with their own GUI. In addition, they are also cloud manageable by the Insight Cloud, which, as I said, is there is no setup, no hardware, no additional software required. It resides in the cloud. The software is always available, and it is always current because it is cloud-based. We are basically making releases every few weeks, and those releases are instantly pushed to the cloud. There's nothing that you need to do. So it is continuously evolving, and we are making sure that we stay in front of technology, always pushing out new releases to make this a very comprehensive solution. I've already covered no controller software to install, no cloud keys to purchase, nothing, none of that, lower TCO. One of the things that we will be pointing out is just how efficient and effective Insight is, and the pricing that we've set up for Insight, really helping our partners build a services business on top of that. Notifications, we make sure that our notifications are really well timed, that they are very speedy, and as soon as we detect that a device is offline for some reason, we are going to proactively send you that notification. Reliability, as I mentioned, the cloud is essentially like the 5 nines of reliability. So you have reliability and scale, and then peace of mind. Netgear has been doing this for 22 years. Unlike a lot of other networking vendors, we're not focused on the enterprise with just a version for SMB that is sort of a defeatured, dumbed down version of their enterprise solution to fit into a price point that even at that lower price point, is unaffordable to most small businesses. So we are really focused on true small business needs and the needs of the channel that supports small businesses. And we have to take into account the real needs of small businesses, what is affordable to them, and how can the channel build a business for small business. So some of the key things, again, just as a repeat, key elements of why Insight is a better solution: no additional hardware or software required, and true cloud capabilities, no open ports. Your network is locked down and it is completely your own network. There are no dependencies on your network to access the Insight Cloud. Hybrid, as I said, each device within the Insight family is manageable on its own. It has its own GUI. In addition, we have the cloud management provided by Insight. And then also just one additional point here is that Insight has a lot of depth of features already, even in its first release. You can do everything from VLAN management, QoS management. You can also manage security across both Wi-Fi and switches. A key element of Insight is that you're seeing a centralized holistic view. You can set up configs for your on the access point side as well as on the switch side, and basically push them out to all of the devices within the category, all in a single, in a single tap and a single click. Other things that we have emphasized in Insight is ease of use, really quick, easy setup, fast device onboarding. As I mentioned, there are multiple ways to onboard new devices through a network scan, also through a QR code and a barcode scan. We've really emphasized the simplification of the user experience. And then at the same time, while we emphasize the simplicity of the user experience and making something as complex as networking easier, we've not done it through a compromise on the feature set. So you still have the depth of features across all of the onboarding process, as well as the configuration and setup of access points and switches, and also tying in support applications, support elements right into the Insight app. Anywhere management, remote access from anywhere, because it is all cloud-based, and then finally the Insight brand and quality. So with that, I'm going to thank you all, and we're going to open up for questions.
Yeah, great. Thank you for the presentation, Shaheen. We do have a few questions. Kevin is asking, what will happen to the existing managed switches? I think there's concern about will Insight basically be pushed out to all other SMB switches? So Insight, there is, so initially Insight already manages a family across access point switches and storage devices. There is a plan to continue to grow out the number of devices that Insight will manage. But that said, there will always be lines of access points and switches that will be outside of the Insight ecosystem. So that will be pretty much as they are today. Great. Yeah, so the products like the M4300 and those bigger fully managed switches, they will stay the same, and Insight will just grow as its own product line.
Yes, so there are no immediate plans in terms of what new products Insight will manage. Obviously, that will evolve. We do have, just as an FYI, in the new release of Insight that comes out in January, we will be adding some new products under Insight management. That includes Orbi Pro. That also includes a couple of new switches that are bigger 28-port switches.
So I know we talked about the Insight application being pushed out to other switches, but is there a way for other switches to be put back into Insight? Like the other way around.
I just want to make sure that I've understood the question. So it's like, will Insight manage other devices that are not currently managed by Insight?
Not product lines, but specifically our other switches. Will other switches be able to work with Insight?
So Insight today can do, it depends on the switch. In the case of Smart and Pro and Plus switches, Insight actually does discover and monitor them. So Insight does do it, although it cannot manage those switches, so you cannot configure those switches via Insight. It does provide some capabilities in terms of monitoring, discovery, etc., for all Smart, so Pro and Plus switches today. In terms of, will that grow? What will we be adding? The capabilities we'll be adding to Insight. There is, as I mentioned, there is a plan to grow out the devices under the Insight umbrella. I've already mentioned that we will be adding in the January release, we'll be adding support for a larger switch with 28 ports, and also Orbi Pro. And then over time, we will provide advance notice of how we plan to grow out the Insight family.
And do new Netgear products need to have a paid annual Insight subscription each year in order for their continued use if we're not going to use Insight?
No, you do not. There will always be products that will be sold exactly as they were and do not require Insight management.
And then we did have a NAS question. The network is cloud-based, but the customer can't have the NAS as a local network, correct?
Yeah, just like all the other products, the NAS operates independently. Insight, based on cloud infrastructure, only enhances the management, the monitoring, and the maintenance of the NAS. It fundamentally helps the service providers as well as end users to see the NAS better. But the NAS themselves can operate completely independent of the Insight cloud, and in fact, it can completely operate without the cloud. So for certain law enforcements, for some highly secure locations, they work completely on their local network, insulated from the cloud. So yes.
Great, thank you, Doug. And for now, those are all the questions we have. Unless you guys have anything else, please pop those questions in before we end. Another NAS question. Can a Ready NAS without any other GC series switch or AP be managed via Insight on the client network?
No, but unfortunately that's a joke. I wish it were that. No, these are all very standard networking protocol, standard networking protocol-based products. The NAS operate independent of of all the other switches and routers. You can certainly pair up other people's switches with a Ready NAS, but of course having a single pane of management and control with Insight, it just makes life so much easier. So for service providers out there, it's a much easier, better tool for Insight to manage all the switches, all the Wi-Fi, access points, and NAS all from a single device.
Okay. Well, if there aren't any more questions, I would like to remind you all that Doug actually will be joining us again next week on Halloween, and we have a very exciting Netgear Ready NAS Halloween-themed webinar. So look out for that. We'll be learning the tricks and treats of Ready NAS, and we'll also have a giveaway that day. So with that said, I hope you guys found this webinar really insightful. If you have any questions, do let us know or email us. Oh, we have one more. Firmware, minimum needed on Ready NAS to use Insight?
6 point, well, Actually, starting from 6.8, the answer is yes. But I highly recommend that you keep up with our firmware releases. Our latest firmware is 6.9. It's just got a lot, continuously improving both the feature set as well as bear in mind performance. We have gotten some pretty cool features built into the 6.9 that enhances the performance of your system. So always keep up with our latest firmware, please.
Great. All right. Well, we hope to see you guys next week at another Ready NAS webinar that will be Halloween themed. And wherever you are, I hope you have a good day or good evening, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, everyone.